This video is brought to you with the support of TrueFire. Learn, practice, and play with TrueFire. Hi, this is Keith Williams. Welcome to 5-Watt World, where we're just to help you get the most music from the least gear. Growing up, there was a kid in my neighborhood who was left home alone, unsupervised from a young age. We weren't allowed to go to Dana's house when his parents weren't there, so of course, we did. His older brother had a great record collection, and we quickly developed a ritual of putting on a record and imagining ourselves hearing this music for the first time in a much cooler corner of the world, like so many other junior bohemians. The turntable was in a different room from the speakers, so when he went to change the album, we couldn't see what was coming next. Whenever there was a new record, our excitement would reach a fever pitch. All of our youthful energy focused on those discs we knew our parents wouldn't approve of. Perhaps none of these experiences was more shocking than the opening riffs of Black Sabbath's Iron Man. In that moment, our small world got bigger, deeper, and definitely heavier. An old friend of mine likes to say that some events are before and after moments, something that once it happens, everything that comes after is different, and nothing is ever quite the same again. We know now, in retrospect, that Tony Iommi was clearly the before and after guitarist of his generation. So if you've always wondered what guitars were used to change the world, then stay tuned, because this is the 5-Watt World short history of the guitars of Tony Iommi. If you enjoy our videos, make sure to subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, grab a hoodie or a Stomp preset pack to support what we do. And to become a bigger part of 5-Watt World, think about signing up for the Friends of 5-Watt on Patreon. The links are in the description. Anthony Frank Iommi was born on February 19, 1948, the only child of Italian immigrant parents. Born and raised in Handsworth, Birmingham, England, Iommi was a student at Birchfield Road School, where John Michael Ozzy Osbourne was also a student 1 year behind him. After initially being interested in playing the drums, he turned to guitar as a teenager after being inspired by Hank Marvin and the Shadows. He's always played left-handed and has tended to play instruments specifically made for left-handed players. Iommi's first guitar was a 60s Watkins Rapier 22. Poring over the catalogs, it was the only left-handed guitar he could find. It cost around 20 pounds, and his mother bought it for him on weekly installments. Iommi was between 10 and 11 years old at the time. The Watkins guitars were first introduced in the late 50s and were built in 2, 3, and 4 pickup models. Iommi's was a 2 pickup model with a high-low Watkins vibrato bridge and a 3-way switch. Though the color couldn't be confirmed, it's likely that it was red, given the Hank Marvin influence, as Marvin's Fiesta Red Strat had sent young Brits clamoring for red guitars all over. In '64, Iommi was joining his first serious band and upgraded to a Burns Trisonic. Burns was a relatively young company at the time, and their guitars were used by many players in the early 60s. After leaving school, he worked in a number of manufacturing jobs, and on his last day in a sheet metal factory, he suffered an accident where he lost the tips of his middle and ring finger on his right, or fretting hand. While sitting in the hospital after the accident, he was told he'd never play guitar again. He decided he wouldn't accept that without a fight. The factory foreman is said to have played a recording of jazz guitarist Django Reinhardt, whose fretting hand was damaged in a fire, as a way of inspiring Iommi. Inspired by Reinhardt's example, he began trying to play again. In an interview in Guitar World, he said he never seriously considered switching to trying to play right-handed. At that point, he had been playing 2 or 3 years, and he felt that the switch would be like starting from scratch. He fitted thimbles, covered with leather, to his injured fingers to extend their reach. He began using banjo strings as light-gauge guitar strings were not yet available, and in addition, he would tune the guitar down for many tunes. While today we think of down-tuning as to get a heavier, bigger sound, with light strings it also creates more slack, making it easier to fret and bend. People have often made much of the accident, and of Iommi's need to find new ways of chording as part of what created metal. But Iommi has said that though this was true, his biggest regret as a player was the loss of his fingertips. If anything, it was the doctors telling him that he wouldn't play that drove him to play as he did. After playing in a few other bands from '64 to '68, the breakup of his band Mythology coincided with the breakup of the band Rare Breed, that was where Ozzy was a lead singer. Ozzy joined Iommi and drummer Bill Ward, and suggested bassist Geezer Butler from Rare Breed. They experimented with adding a slide guitarist and a saxophonist, but after just 2 gigs they were dismissed, and in September of '68 they renamed the band Earth. Later that same month, Iommi left and played a few gigs with Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull, but returned to Earth by November. This is notable because it includes a performance on 1968's Rock and Roll Circus with the Rolling Stones. Here we see Iommi playing his 3rd guitar, an early '60s white Fender Stratocaster. He used the white Strat from the end of the band Rockin' Chevrolets in '65 through Sabbath's first album in 1970. It was this guitar that he was using at the time of the accident, and he modded the guitar in ways to try to make it easier to play. He lowered the action and filed down the frets, tweaked the pickups, and ended up repainting the guitar white. Coming up against another band named Earth, in August of '69, the band renamed themselves Black Sabbath. During the recording of the self-titled first record released in February of '70, one of the pickups stopped working on the Stratocaster, and Iommi would record the rest of the record with a 1960 SG Special that would end up being the blueprint for his guitar tone from that point forward. His first special was actually a right-handed guitar, and he had to play it upside down. Shortly after recording their album, Iommi serendipitously ran into a right-handed player that owned a left-handed special just like his, and they swapped guitars. That heaven-sent lefty SG Special would become Iommi's monkey guitar, used from the second album, Paranoid, forward. Clearly one of Iommi's best-known guitars, and was even recently released by Gibson as a limited signature run by the Gibson Custom Shop, and then went on to be a Production USA run. Soon after getting the left-handed SG Special, Tony went to John Birch's shop to have some modifications made to it. The neck pickup was replaced by a Synplux pickup, which was a P90 style design of Birch's. Birch also rewound the bridge pickup and put it in a matching metal casing. There was a 0 fret installed next to the nut, and the neck was refinished with a coat of polyurethane lacquer on the fingerboard. Iommi then added the sticker of a monkey playing a fiddle as well to give the guitar its name. Iommi used this guitar on Paranoid in September of '70, Master of Reality July of '71, and Volume 4 September of '72, and all the gigs supporting those albums. After '72, he retired the guitar, worried that it would get stolen. He recently sold the guitar to the Hard Rock Cafe Museum. During the recording of Paranoid in June of 1970, some pics show Iommi with a white Les Paul SG Custom. The guitar is either a 62 or a 63. The truss rod cover appears to have been replaced with a custom one, so it's impossible to tell, as the 60 to 62 guitars would have said Les Paul on the truss rod cover. Les Paul's endorsement deal, of course, ran out at the end of '62. The guitar was used for a few gigs during 1970, but then seems to have disappeared toward the end of that year. It isn't clear if the guitar was stolen or if he simply preferred to use the monkey guitar. Notably, it was the Master of Reality album where the specifics of Iommi's accident led to him to tune the guitar down, and bassist Geezer Butler did as well to match. In 1975, John Birch built Tony a custom 24-fret SG-style guitar. It featured a black finish, cross-inlay fretboard, stainless steel pickguard, and had 2 John Birch Magnum pickups. The guitar was used on the album from '76 to '81, including Technical Ecstasy, Never Say Die, Heaven and Hell, and Mob Rules. I reached out to TrueFire to be my sponsor because I've used them for years. With over 2 million users worldwide, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced level player, TrueFire has lessons to enhance and inspire your playing. Get 35% off courses using the promo code 5watt35. Or like I do, sign up for the All Access Pass to use the entire TrueFire catalog. I really like TrueFire, and I think if you give them a shot, you'll like them too. Sign up now to start your journey to being a better guitarist. I'd like to thank TrueFire for their support in making this video. That John Birch guitar seems to have been his main instrument until he began using the guitar built for him by John Diggins, which was dubbed the Old Boy. It seems around the same time that Birch built the black guitar, Diggins began working on another custom guitar intended for Iommi. Diggins was still working with John Birch, and Diggins worked on the guitar on his own time. He would complete the guitar just weeks before becoming Iommi's guitar tech and traveling with Black Sabbath on the road. Like the black custom guitar, the Old Boy had a 24-fret neck. Keep in mind that the neck pickups are usually positioned where the 24th fret would be on a guitar with fewer frets, and this changes the tone from that pickup. The guitar features a custom wound Diggins pickup in the bridge and a modified Birch Magnum pickup in the neck. There was a Shaler fine-tuning bridge and a transparent plexiglass pickguard. It had 4 control knobs, but only 3 were connected and functional. The unique peeled and cracked finish of the guitar is the result of having been left in a car on a hot day while on tour in Brazil. The damage may also have been due to the guitar having been finished in Diggins' kitchen without a proper spray booth to apply a professional finish. In addition, he was rushing to complete the guitar so that Iommi would have the guitar for the upcoming American tour. It was first used on the overdubs for Heaven and Hell. However, it wasn't used on stage until the early 80s. From 83 on, it replaced the Black John Birch as Iommi's main instrument. Sometime in 81, Diggins also built Iommi a guitar to serve as a spare for the Old Boy, with an SG-style body, custom headstock by Diggins, 2 rail-style humbucking pickups, a locking nut, and a Kahler tremolo bridge. There was actually another of these in black that can be seen in the video for Zero the Hero. Both of these guitars were used through the 80s and into the early 90s, and are both now owned by rockstarguitars.com. But in the 80s, Tony also used a guitar released by B.C. Rich, dubbed the Iron Bird, seen in his Starlick instructional video. It features a black finish, cross inlays, scalloped fingerboard, Kahler bridge, and 2 DiMarzio pickups with a built-in preamp. It's unknown whether he used the guitar to record. Tony also had a left-handed B.C. Rich Mockingbird guitar that he used as a backup during that period. Around 1991, just prior to the official creation of the Gibson Custom Shop, Gibson master builder J.T. Ribeloff built a guitar for Iommi, based around an SG standard but with a 24-fret neck and a floating Floyd Rose trem bridge. In '93, British luthier Patrick James Engel began working on a signature guitar, Tony Iommi Artist Model. Iommi would begin using the guitar around '94. It featured a Brazilian mahogany body and neck, a 24-fret fingerboard with a 0-fret, cross inlays, Sperzel locking tuners, Shaler fine-tuned bridge, and a pair of custom-wound Seymour Duncan pickups. Supposedly, Iommi had 4 of these guitars, all finished in black, all now owned by rockstarguitars.com. In the late 90s, another Gibson SG custom guitar showed up. Fitted with a tremolo, it also had 2 of the Tony Iommi signature pickups that were first built in '97. In addition, it has 2 Fender jazz bass knobs on the volume pots, which are common features on Iommi's guitars. In 1997, the first 2 Gibson Iommi prototype guitars were delivered to Tony. Based on a combination of an early 60s standard small pickguard guitar along with cross inlays on the neck, a red finish, 24-fret fingerboard, 4 control knobs with only 2 connected, and the Iommi signature pickups. Iommi used the guitar at the last gig in 1997 for the Sabbath reunion tour and continued using it as one of his main guitars until 2010, when his website announced that the guitar had been stolen. A second prototype was finished around the same time, with the same specs except that it was finished in black. In 2020, the Gibson Custom Shop did a short run of Iommi's 64 Monkey replica guitars. Like the original, it had a polyurethane-coated fingerboard, a 0-fret, and John Birch custom pickups similar to the originals. It quickly became one of the most collectible custom-run guitars ever done by Gibson, currently fetching around $20,000 a copy.
The first 4 or 5 albums, yeah, it was used on. And bits on the others, you know. After that, eventually I retired it because I was worried about taking it on the road, because it used to always travel with me. I'd have it in the room, and I'd never lose sight of it. I wouldn't leave it on its own, you know, in case somebody nicked it, because that was, for me, I couldn't just pick up another guitar. It had to be right. So it was really precious for me. And I was really worried about it if I left it in a room, and if somebody took it, that's it, I'm finished, you know, no gigs.
They went on to do a production run version of the Monkey SG guitar as well, complete with 24-fret neck, Shaler-style bridge, and chrome-covered P90s. Each of these sells for roughly $2,300 and comes with a monkey sticker in the case. And there's even an Epiphone version of this guitar built on an import just for under $1,000, which has a 22-fret neck, adjustable wraparound bridge, and chrome-covered Epiphone Pro P90 pickups. As for the acoustics, there's little photographic evidence of Iommi's acoustic guitars, though he is said to have used a vintage Gibson J45 on the song Fluff from the 1973 Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. He can also be seen playing a Taylor 800 series and a T5 model on the Classic Albums documentary. Iommi is by far the most visible user of Laney amplifiers through the years. Prior to recording with Black Sabbath, he mostly used a 50-watt Marshall Plexi. The first record of Sabbath's found him using a Laney LA100BL on both Black Sabbath and Paranoid. These amps are sometimes referred to as the pre-supergroup amp. He may have used a Laney clip on Master of Reality, but we know that after Paranoid was released, he began using the classic Laney supergroup, and this was his main amp until the late 80s. Around 76, he was also experimenting with his tone, and he used a Vox AC30 for a short time. On Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, he used a Marshall Super Lead model, 1959, that had been modified by John Doc Stillwell, who added an additional preamp tube and a master volume. Through the 80s, he also used Mesa Boogie Mark IIB Coliseum amps periodically. He had an endorsement deal with Sun Amps in the 80s, but it isn't known if he ever used them to record. Then in '93, Laney built Tony a 3-channel amp, the GH100 Ti, and it's been one of his main amps ever since. In 2009, he used an Engel Powerball on Devil You Know and Heaven and Hell. And finally, in 2012, Laney released the TI-100, which features 2 channels and uses 6L6 output tubes with a 3-band EQ section. Iommi was a user of the Dallas Rangemaster treble booster from the early days of the band until '79, when it said that John Stillwell, the amp tech who was working with Tony's amps, threw the pedal away without Tony's knowledge. In 2001, Tony worked with Analog Man to create a clone of this long-lost pedal, and this went on to become their Beano Boost that is still available. It's funny that they decided to name the pedal the Beano Boost when it's widely agreed upon now that Clapton did not use a Rangemaster on the Mayall record, but we know that Iommi used one for years. Perhaps they should have named it the Tony Boost. And finally, an early adopter of very light strings, at present Tony uses La Bella 8 to 32 string gauges for D-sharp tuning and 9 to 42 for C-sharp tuning, along with Dunlop picks in 88 to 96, essentially a heavy gauge. Widely considered one of the greatest rock guitarists of all time, both Guitar World and Hammer Magazine have ranked him at the top of their metal lists. And in 2011, Rolling Stone magazine ranked him 25th in their 100 Greatest Guitarists of All Time. Seen as one of the main creators of heavy metal music, Brian May of Queen called him the true father of heavy metal, and James Hetfield of Metallica called him the king of the heavy riff. The influence of Black Sabbath is therefore hard to overstate. Heavy metal is an immensely varied genre, and Iommi's influence can be heard in so many radically different areas that it can be hard to believe that it can be traced back just to him. Even today, it's common to see bands make explicit references to Sabbath in their music, and it is unlikely that Iommi's influence will fade during our lifetimes. And so it should be no surprise that Black Sabbath was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006 by Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield from Metallica. Iommi had to break many conventions to have this lasting effect on music. Many players would have given up after such a serious injury, but instead Iommi refused to accept defeat and found a way to keep playing. He was an early and unending user of very light strings to get the heaviest tones. He didn't jump on the Les Paul bandwagon that swept England in the late 60s, and he used Laney amps while the rest of the world used Marshalls and later Mesas. In a recent interview, David Grissom told me, "I listen with my ears, preferring to look for his own tone and not getting so hung up in the gear in front of him." Tony Iommi clearly listened with his ears. His entire career in rock and metal have been better for it. First, I need to thank longtime Tony Iommi fan Angus Clark for writing, playing, and recording the opening and closing track for the video. If you want to learn more of how this is done, see Angus's TrueFire instructional videos. I need to thank my script editor, Perry McManus. Perry's penchant for dark metal has been a boon to the scripts here on 5 Watt World. If you're surprised at a metal reference in a video, it's likely that Perry snuck it in there. I'd like to thank the guys at Guitarist Magazine for their permission to use the bit of the interview that they did with Iommi at the time of the release of the Monkey replica guitars. I still read Guitarist Magazine cover to cover every month, and you should too. I need to thank Dan Kapilovich from Ground Guitar. His website on famous gear and guitars remains an inspiration for me. I need to thank everyone that stopped by the store and grabbed a hoodie or a Stomp preset pack. In particular, I need to thank the friends of 5 Watt. You're all 5 Watt World. I just make the videos. If I missed your favorite guitar of Tony Iommi's career, leave it in the comments for everyone to enjoy. If you enjoyed this short history, of the guitars of Iommi, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that too. Thanks for hanging with me until the end. Until next time, I'm Keith Williams. Thanks for being a part of the 5 Watt World.